Ladies and gentlemen, before we dive into the video, I have a public service announcement. YouTube has demonetized my entire channel, which means that I get no ad revenue off any of my content, even if you still see an ad before it. If you guys want to support me and my content, the best way to do it is to head over to goblin420.com and get your hands on some merch. It's beautiful, high quality, sexy merch. We got hoodies, shirts, we got all sorts of accessories, we got stickers. Just head over to the website and take a look. Even if you don't intend on buying, just checking out the website helps me out a lot. I appreciate your guys' support. Whether I have ad revenue or not, I will always continue to put out content. But now that the ad revenue's gone, we can get a little more wacky on this channel. So now that that's out of the way, I appreciate the support, and without further ado, let's dive right into the video. Also, if I sound kind of weird in this video, it's because I've been sick for like almost 2 weeks. My voice is just now in the position where I can kind of sound normal, so either way. In today's video, we're talking about the time that me and the homies bought a pound of some of the absolute worst weed that I've ever touched in my life. Now, you see, back when I was in high school, me and my friends, we didn't have access to the best weed in the world, and we also, quite frankly, didn't have the money for it. None of us really had the money to go out and just buy a pound for ourselves, so we would essentially crowdfund that shit. We'd run a GoFundMe for the homies' weed, and it worked, dude. You see, we all linked up at my boy Michael's house on this fine day, and usually Michael's house was where we linked up to buy decent amounts of weight because Michael was the one who had the plug for it. So we all went over to Michael's house. I was over there. Everybody was there. I'm talking, we had Bob, we had Alec, we had Bill. Everybody was in the cut. Pretty much my entire core high school friend group was at Michael's crib on this day. We were probably 10 or 12 people deep. We were smoking some blunts. We were chilling out. We were drinking some beers. And we already had a plan before I had even got there. You see, we had already been discussing in our little group chat that we wanted to re-up today. So we had kind of gotten a tally of who was down and how much they were down to throw. And we were able to get enough money together to go grab a pee. So we linked up at Michael's. We get all our money together. We got all the cash. And now we send in our special agent, who's Michael. Now listen, back when we were in high school, buying a pound was a very big deal. We would go into this shit like a spec ops team. We would pull up like SEAL Team 6, bro. We'd be sitting there, we're like, all right, what if the plug's on some bullshit? He tries to take our money. Well, we can't fold. We'll send a couple extra homies in the car with Michael. Make sure you bring a knife or something. Dude, literally, when we used to go re-up on big amounts, a motherfucker would have like a kitchen knife in his backpack just sitting in the car. What are we ever going to do with that? Plug pulls a gun. We got Ernie outside with a kitchen knife. Like, yo, just walk in and just hope he doesn't notice and shank him. Like, we really thought this was serious business. In reality, we're going to some guy's mom's house to buy a pound of the worst weed in the county, and we have to keep our voices down or else his mom is going to come out and kick us all out. But we thought that this was like a big deal. We were like, yo, we're going to the trap house, bro. And it was mysterious because not a lot of us went in. Like, not a lot of us ever actually went in and knew who this pound plug was. Michael and maybe one of my other friends were the only ones who ever went in there, right? So there was a kind of an air of mystery to it, combined with the fact that a pound of Reggie back then to us was a big deal. We were taking this real seriously. I mean, listen, at this point in our lives, I think you could have proposed this question to any of my friends that were there this day. If you had like your girlfriend hanging off a cliff and then you had the pound of Reggie hanging off a cliff, we would all grab that pound, dude. Not even a second thought. We were all grabbing that headache pack. No ifs, ands, or buts, right? This was a big deal. So I chilled out at Michael's house with the rest of the homies, and we all just kind of sat there and waited while Michael hopped in the car, and he took a couple of my homies, a couple of the friend group, and went on over there and got the pound. Now, we're all sitting there, and it's like we're kids on Christmas, dude. It's like we're sitting in the living room waiting for Santa Claus to come down the chimney with a pea. We're gathered around, sitting in a circle in the living room, smoking blunts of the last of the weed that we had left. We were all pitching in small-ass sacks. Dude, these were the days, man. Back then, you had to get like 4 people to throw down to roll a decently fat blunt because we all showed up with 10 sacks. So it was rough. But eventually, after chilling out, smoking some mid and waiting, Michael came back, and he came back with a pound, and oh my. You know, I will say that the one good thing about this pound is I remember this so vividly. It was packed fat, and we could not believe it. By the time we got done scaling everything out and divvying out everyone's cut to the pound, it ended up being like a half ounce over, which to us at the time, that was Christmas, dude. That was unbelievable. That half ounce was getting smoked that very instant. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So back to where we were. Michael had just walked in with the pound of this garbo. And we're all, oh my God, we stand up. I damn near wanted to salute the guy, dude. It's like the president walked in. He comes in and he sets his bag on the table and he busts a pound out of it, right? Oh man, it looked rough. Like even for back then, it looked rough, dude. It was not looking good. Now, also, I should have known better because this pound, it was not just in a vacuum seal, right? Normally, you know, you go buy a P, you know, you go to the plug and you're going to get a nice vac seal. This was broken up into like 3 or 4 different gallon Ziploc bags. So, I mean, it was really, really looking scuffed from the get-go. But we were still optimistic. A pound of weed is a pound of weed. And back then, I would have smoked some dog shit if it had 1% terps. So we're busting out these bags, and we had all brought our scales over. Oh, my God. If Michael's mom came home, she would have thought we were running a clandestine meth lab and called the police immediately with how many scales were on the table. We were scaling shit out, all of us. We had our tiny little shitty folding 1/8 scales. Everyone went to the same exact store to get the scales. There was a store in the mall that we all went to, so everyone had the same shitty little scale. The way that we did this was essentially we assigned each of us that had a scale to scale out until we had an ounce, right? So we all had cups and we put them on our scales and we just kept adding to the cup until it came out to an ounce. And then we waited, right? So we had a shitload of solo cups full of weed, right? And this shit was garbage. There was like no nugs. Normally, you're probably not going to fit a zip into a solo cup. With this shit, yeah, you're fitting the zip in the solo cup, all right? This was stepped on. This was that dense pack, okay? And granted, the cups were overflowing a bit, but hey, we still got the job done. So it took us a while to scale this out, partially because we were all stoned and partially because we had the tiniest scales and the worst tools available. But after we ended up scaling everything out, it ended up being over by, if I remember correctly, it was about a half ounce, give or take. It wasn't quite an ounce though, but it was enough to have us all excited. So we were like, yo, let's roll a fucking doink. Let's take all the extra and instead of distributing it, let's just roll a fucking doink. So that's exactly what we did, right? We dipped out. We went to the smoke shop. There was this little smoke shop in our area that never ID'd. It didn't even have a name. It just said tobacco over the door. And you go in and these guys had every raw cone under the sun. These guys, I don't know if they were real or not, but my God, they had raw cones and they had the big ones. So we grabbed the biggest raw cone they had. And I don't remember what these things are called, but I think they're like the Superman cones or some shit. I don't know. But either way, we grabbed one of those big boy cones and we went back to Michael's crib and we packed it up with the half ounce. And we realized that the half ounce wasn't even enough for it. So we each threw in a little bit more and then it was game. Now listen, I would guesstimate that probably a good 20% of each of our ounces, 20% of the whole pound was stems. This shit was brutal. But you got to remember, these were the days when we would save our stems, dude. We would save the stems and always be like, yeah, we're going to make stem tea. And then we'd all sit there and try to make stem tea and act like we were high. You know, hey, never ended well. Maybe we'll do a video about one of those incidents one day. But we always saved our stems, right? So we had a mountain of these stems, even just after rolling up this joint. We had a mountain. Well, rolling isn't the right word. It was a cone. I think stuffing is more appropriate. Either way, we stuffed that fucking joint. We stuffed that shit good. We stuffed that shit like Riley Reid. And after it was nice and filled up, we sparked that shit up. And I'm telling you right now, I remember this so vividly. I remember, oh my God. Listen, I smoked a lot of not so great weed back in the day. Everyone did, you know? It was normal back then. But this was like exceptionally bad weed, even for back then. We had probably, I'd say, close to 3/4 of an ounce in this thing, maybe a little over, maybe a little less, give or take. And I was barely high by the end of it. Like, yeah, sure, we did have like 14 heads on this shit, but we still, that's like a gram a person. That's more than a gram a person in this thing. Do the math. I should have been feeling good. Instead, I felt despair. I felt pain inside of me because we smoked this thing, and it smoked for a not very substantial amount of time either. It was doing a very weird thing where it seemed like the weed in the middle was burning faster than the paper around it. It was really not an enjoyable smoke, but we smoked this shit, and we were all just like extremely disappointed. But we weren't really in any position to do anything about it. You see, this dude that we got this pound from was one of maybe like 2 people that anyone in our friend group knew that could serve us that kind of weight. We didn't want to burn that bridge. So we're sitting there talking and we're like, bro, what do we do? This shit is garbage. And granted, we paid a damn good price. I don't remember exactly what we paid, but I remember it was pretty goddamn cheap. So, I mean, it made sense. But holy shit, it was brutal. This was some of the worst. It was less than $100 an ounce after it was all said and done. Yeah, but like, oh my God, dude, it was so bad. We finished smoking, and I remember while we were smoking it, it was so rough. It tasted such a distinct, disgusting way. It almost tasted like how grass smells, if that makes sense. It had a very like fertilizer taste to it. It tasted absolutely brutal. Honestly, if someone sprayed an entire can of fertilizer on this shit right before we smoked it, it probably would have tasted better than it did at the time. But we smoked this bullshit, and I was extremely disappointed. So I realized pretty quickly that, hey, this was not going to be the Percy stash that I thought it was. You know, I went into this and I was thinking, damn, I'm going to get a zip for the low. I'm going to be sitting on it. You know, I'll smoke up. I'll just smoke out the bag. We'll be chilling. You know, it'll be great. Maybe I'll sell a quarter of it to recoup a little bit. We'll be chilling. As soon as we finished smoking that J, my brain shifted. I knew that I had to sell this weed. The problem was I now had like 10 other homies that were all trying to sell the same weed, and we all knew the same goddamn people. So we're all, literally all of us that night posted on the story like, yo, who need loud? Hit my line. Bro, we could have started a goddamn criminal enterprise, bro. We could have started a network of Reggie pushers with how much Reggie we were flooding the streets with. So we're just, oh my God. I'm posting up on my story. All the homies are on their story. And we're trying not to undercut each other and be dickheads. And we're trying to all have the same prices while still get this weed gone. And I remember it took me a little while. Listen, I didn't have motion like that, okay? I could get rid of some good weed because good weed sells itself. But Reggie, that's a tough sell, my guy. That's a tough, God, even back then, that's a tough sell. And also, listen, back in high school, I had absolutely no morals. So if I could have made this weed look better and finesse somebody, you're damn well sure that I would have done that. But this weed was so god awful that was off the table. It was not possible. I just had to be up front and be like, yo, I got the lows for the lows, man. What you need? Come shop. Eventually, I did get rid of it all, though. Thank you, Jesus. And I used that money to buy some better weed as soon as I could. The money I got from selling that bullshit ass ounce was not even enough to buy an ounce of the gas. It was that poverty pack. I was at the point where if someone came to me and asked for a $5 eighth, I probably would have folded, dude. That wasn't even profit for me, but I probably would have folded. Get that shit out of my sight. I'll take the fin, go to the gas station, get some wraps, get a drink and a little bag of Skittles, and I'm fucking vibing. I'm ready for the sesh. This weed was so awful that I didn't even smoke any of it after I went home. I ended up leaving out of Michael's place. We all kind of dispersed because we were all on a mission to get rid of this weed as fast as possible. And by the time I got back to my place, I was like, yo, I need some better weed, dude. And I went over to Cody's house immediately and re-upped off his brother, dude. Oh my God. Listen, ladies and gents. This was the absolute worst marijuana, the worst Marijuana that I had smoked probably the entire year at that point. I don't want to say of all time because I don't think it is of all time, but oh my God. Bottom 5 for sure. Bottom 5 is not a place you want to be, okay? Bottom 5 of any leaderboard is very low. But listen, ladies and gents, My throat is killing me, so I'm going to end the video here. Sorry this one was a bit shorter. I honestly had to pause and do a lot of cuts while I was recording this because my throat is kind of still being a bitch. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Drop a like if you did. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. And be sure to check out the merch site at goblin420.com. Thank you guys for the support. Follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/GBLN420. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out, y'all.